In this episode, we get to discuss the importance of randomness into making decisions. Hello and welcome back. My name is Andrei and this is Decode Your 20s. Now, we are going to talk with Wing about this entire topic that decisions are somehow random and it's not binary how we choose the decisions. And we had Wing 2 episodes ago and I'm super happy to have him again. But Wing, why not you tell us a bit about yourself and who you are?
Yeah, thanks Andre. I'm excited to be back here. I had a good time last episode and glad we got to catch up before you head out as well. So hi everyone. If you guys don't know already, I met Andre at UCL while I was a student there. I graduated from Berkeley last year and now I'm working at AngelList on their venture operations team. So most of my background is in venture capital and startup investing.
That's cool, and I think that you will have to deal with the unknown when you become a VC, and I think you might give us some cool insights and ideas about the topic that I'm curious to hear your thoughts about, and that is, I started to look around and trying to understand how we make decisions. And the problem is that when we have so many decisions to make, like when you have options, and then you can choose only one most of the times. The problem is like, how do you choose that one? And I believe that there is so much randomness in how we choose an option because it's not necessarily obvious that it's the best, and also each decision comes with so much randomness afterwards that we can't actually assess. And the space of making a decision and what happens afterwards is like that big that we basically take not random but very random decisions sometimes. It's very non-binary, and I'm curious to see what you think about this idea.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think that a lot of people underestimate how much randomness actually plays into our everyday lives. There's this idea of, you really wanting to kind of feel like you're in control, you know what you're doing, you're actively making decisions. I think that for most of the time, this is not true. We're kind of just on autopilot. We're making decisions based off momentum of things in the past. And like you said, right, what are we using to make certain decisions? Is it reason? Is it emotion? I think a lot of people kind of say that, oh, I'm a rational human being, I use reason, right? Yeah, I think most or like 99% of our decisions is just made emotionally.
Emotions.
And the reasons like come afterwards to justify the decision that you make, right? So I guess that comes down to the question, like, how do you know that the decision you made is good? As you said, you can't run these experiments twice. You can't, like, they're non-falsifiable, right? So you can't go back, run this again and prove that, like, hey, this was the right thing, whereas this wasn't, right? So I'm curious, how do you think about this? And can you even test whether the decision you made was good? Like, is anything ever a direct result or something? Or how do you kind of think about that as well?
Firstly, I want to say that I agree with what you said, like most of decisions are emotion, and then you back up that with some imaginary, rational.
Yeah.
The way I think about it is I don't believe that you can test a decision because once you made it, it's already passed.
Yep.
And another point is like if you spend time thinking about that one, firstly, you can't know what was the alternative because it's past.
Yeah.
You might believe that you will learn something by thinking about it, but if you think that much about that, then you are going to lose on your next choice. So you're always living in the past trying to understand how would it have been.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good strategy for the long term. Definitely not reproducible because you can't take a decision. What I saw now to be, let's say, working is trying to take decisions good enough and fast, putting the speed into account.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I have to make decisions which seem important, like not on an everyday basis, but something which is more important, where you are going to study, or like what do you want to focus in the next year, something which involves more time. Firstly, it's a hard decision to make. There are so many variables that you don't know which one is good, and I sometimes feel that I get like frozen, like stuck. I don't know like what to choose, and putting the speed into perspective, like instead of getting 3 decisions good and 0 bad, I would much rather take 10 good and 5 bad. Because on the long run, you compensate by the volume of the good decisions over the bad ones.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. So in startup operations investing, a lot of VCs and founders say that they believe that the velocity of decision making is much more important than the accuracy. Mm-hmm. So you just need to, every day there's stuff going on, there's bridges burning, there's fires happening, you just need to make decisions as fast as you can to try to get to point B, rather than try to sit and try to make the right decisions, rather than like analyze everything. The speed and the velocity at which these decisions are made are much more important. Going back on that, and just this idea of whole like decision making in the first place, right? A lot of people actually believe, like Sam Harris, he's like a philosopher, and he talks about this idea of that free will doesn't exist. So he doesn't believe that you're actually actively making decisions at any point in time. He says that all it is like your background, your past, the way you were raised, your cultural upbringing, it's all resulting in this moment. And there's in that moment when you think you're making a decision, there's actually no other decision that you would have made. So it's like a free will versus determinism debate. So I'm kind of curious, like where you stand on that. Do you believe in free will? Do you think we're actively deciding, or is it just like the influence of our past pushing us in one way, and we would never have like made the other decision anyway?
I never heard this idea, but I believe that free will is not necessarily inexistent, but very small. Most of the decisions you do on your past experience and what you saw to be working or not, and you definitely take those into account. And as an analogy, is the same thing in machine learning. Like if you never trained on some examples, if you want to detect plants and you never trained on some plants, you will never pick that plant because you don't even know that it exists.
Yeah.
So what you have seen before is definitely what you are gonna do. Now, sometimes people change, people see something which impacts them and they want to change. So you might want to have some will at some points, but I believe that most of the decisions, even if you think it's your free will, like you bought Nike, it's not your free will. Right. You saw it being cool around and you think about it.
That's an interesting idea. So if you can kind of conclude more on like the determinism side, that free will is like not in existence or it's less, right? That really impacts how you think about personal responsibility and accountability. So for example, a really great startup founder like Elon Musk, we think that he made all these decisions actively to get to this point. But if free will is like small or more limited than you're saying here, then maybe he shouldn't be getting all this credit and he shouldn't be getting all this acclaim or praise for not even actively making these decisions, but it's just a result of his upbringing and how you grow up.
100%.
Yeah. But then you can say the same thing with like murderers or like criminals, right? Are they actively making a decision to commit crimes, or is it just like society's pressure on them, the past that is like forcing them to this direction?
I think it has a lot to do with the way that you were, brought.
Yeah.
Like if you live in a place where there are crimes around and there is constant fear that you will get murdered or something, I believe this has, impact on you, even if you don't see it, right. But compounded with time, it gives to bad behavior. But I'm curious to get your thoughts because you want to become a VC one day, and in order to become a good VC, you are judged based on the good companies that actually invested. And as the capital becomes a commodity, like there is so much money into the system that it's not the variable anymore. And VCs have to come up with something different.
Right. Yeah.
Now the point becomes, how can, from both sides of the spectrum, like how can the VCs try to convince a company to get to what they have to offer, assuming that the money is the same? And then the other point, putting yourself on the other side of the spectrum, how do you decide as a founder, like what's better for you? Because most of the things are like very similar on paper.
Yeah.
I'm curious to get your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, kind of like what we discussed previously, there's just so much randomness and other factors going into these decisions, going into like this dynamic that you're talking about here. One is the rounds tend to be a lot more competitive later stage. So if it's like Series A or Series B and you're competing with like the big funds like Sequoia and Benchmark, then like of course the founder would like pick them, right? Why would they pick a small VC?
So they would pick the branding.
Yeah, they pick the brand, and just because they're like known value, like it does so much for them in terms of reputation. So what you have to do there is really find a way to distinguish yourself somehow. So with like a lot of new emerging fund managers, they're trying to find new ways to like stand out from the pack. And the easiest way to do that is to build expertise in a specific niche area, right? So once you establish yourself as the guy in SaaS, for example, software as a service, then
how do you quantify your expertise in an area? Like what's...
I don't think that you can easily quantify it, but it's like building a reputation, right? So it's like meeting people and like branding yourself as this guy, like
the guy,
the VR guy, the AI guy, the blockchain guy, for example. And some people have been able to successfully do that. For example, the last fund that I worked at, the House Fund, they were able to brand themselves as the Berkeley Fund. So like Berkeley founders, Berkeley entrepreneurs would pick them because of the affiliation there. So there's a lot of like, it's basically finding ways to stand out amidst all this like randomness and chaos.
Assuming that there are two funds where the money is the same, now you want to distinguish yourself, but there are two guys which both are the blockchain guys.
Yeah.
And you can't from afar tell how necessarily the blockchain guys are each of them, because both of them claims. Like, what do you think is the decision-making process from inside you as the founder?
Okay. From there, I think it's just relationship. It's purely like, who do you think you're going to work better with? Who do you want to be a partner with long term? The way you should think about VC, it's like a 10-year marriage, because you're working together for the next 10 years, right? So it's all relationship based. And from the perspective of the founder, it's again like back to what we're talking about here, decision. It's really hard to know if you make the right decision because you can't go back and you can't prove it. So Steve Jobs talks about this a lot. He says that you have to trust in something. In his speech at Stanford, he was talking about you can't connect the dots looking forwards, you can only connect them looking backwards. And I found that to be true in my life too. So when you're making decisions in that moment, you have to find something else to trust, where that's like, as Steve Jobs was saying, like your gut, karma, religion, you just have to find belief in something and kind of hold on to that. I'm gonna give you an example of how randomness has played a large role in my life too. So I still remember this was like a couple months ago when I was applying for jobs. I initially applied to AngelList once before, I didn't hear back. So I was just sitting in the library one day, I was studying for an exam, and then I thought about AngelList. I was like, hey, I applied to this company a while back, I didn't hear back, should I do anything? And in that moment I was like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna send out an email to the hiring manager just in case they forgot. So I sent out an email, 5 minutes later, I got an email back from the manager.
5 minutes later?
Saying that, hey Wing, please complete this next exercise and move on to the round. So in that moment, at that library, if I didn't make the decision to email him, I probably would never have heard back. Right? So it's just a small example again of like how much of it is just randomness and how much of it is just luck, really. So I don't know if that's something that people like to hear, that's comforting to people, but I think that that's the truth of the fact for the most part.
That's actually a great story.
And
I think it shows a pattern. So many things are like purely, let's say, luck or like randomness. Because what if he didn't apply?
What if he was having a bad day? What if he was in a fight with his girlfriend that day? What if he didn't have breakfast yet? Maybe he's happy because he just had lunch. Like, there's so many things that go into to a decision, into an outcome, something that you really can't predict it. So I think that the main implication of that, from my perspective, I'm kind of curious to hear what you think the implications are. But for me, the implications there is that, one, you have to believe in something, and you have to believe that what you're doing in the moment is the right decision. Two, because that there's so much luck and randomness involved, you shouldn't take things so seriously. Because at the end of the day, these outcomes aren't based on you, right? Although it is to some extent, you can control some things, right? Like how hard you work and things like that. But to an extent, it's really just, so this idea of like not taking it so seriously because it's not entirely your fault or it's not entirely your credit.
I think that what you said is interesting because you raised this point of like, what if it was a bad day? What if it not? So there are like a lot of variables also on the other side, what the other human does. As like a solution with like putting this randomness to your advantage. I think that the solution is like raising the volume of those sorts of like experiments that you do. The more, let's say, sort of those emails you do, the more firstly you have more data of seeing like what actually happens, and you expose yourself to more positive randomness. Negative randomness, like what? They are not going to reply?
Yeah.
Or like in most cases, the negative randomness is way less than the positive randomness.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I think that might be the answer there. Because there's so much luck, there's so much things happening, increasing the volume, increasing the chances, just doing more and more and more. I think that somewhat evens the playing field, right? So when you're searching for a job, applying to more jobs, when you're trying to do something, like find more solutions to that, and then that really limits the role that like outside luck or outside externalities can come into play there. Yeah, I think that's a very good solution and interpretation of what kind of we talked about here.
So yeah, Wing, I think you are definitely a collection of wisdom. Like you read so many things and you compiled many ideas that you definitely have interesting thoughts. And I definitely enjoy doing this episode with you. I would like to have you back in the Decode Your 20 series.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, thanks, Andre. No, I enjoyed this too, and you've inspired me to get some content out there. So I'll start writing and start publishing or something. Yeah, so you'll be seeing more of me. Thanks.
Thank you, and see you in the next one.